Thank you. Thank you for coming, y'all. This is a tradition that we have here. With the interns that we have working with us in the garden, we try to introduce them and engage them in all aspects of public horticulture. And here at the JC Raulston, we get involved with a lot of these types of programs. It also takes some of the heat off of us and let somebody else do these things instead. So please be kind as we walk around. I'm not going to steal their thunder. I'll let them introduce themselves as they go to their plants. They put a lot of heart and energy into this. So think about questions as we go along and be sure to ask them those. I have a shout out to a local celebrity before I kick it over to them. Kaina's grandmother is here, I think. I wanted to recognize that and say thank you for coming. I've heard a lot about you, so it's very nice to see you in person. Thank you for coming, and thank you to all of y'all for coming today on a hot day. We were very happy for that rain. I hope that y'all got some in your neck of the woods too. So without that, we're going to start a tour with, I think Locke is going to be the first one. All right. Here we go.
All right, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Locke Riddle. I am a rising senior at NC State, and I am studying horticulture with a concentration in plant breeding. And the first plant we will be talking about today is Aspidistra oblancifolia, cultivar Nagoya stars. The common name is just speckled cast iron plant. That probably rolls off the tongue a little easier. I mainly picked this plant just because I really enjoy the lanceolate leaves and the nice little speckled pattern that it has. It's just pleasant to look at. I'll go ahead and hand these around. They have these little fruits that develop at the base of the stalk, and then it's normally in the winter, but our inclement weather has caused them to come out a little earlier. This is a hardy herbaceous evergreen, and it's also a perennial, so you can put it in your garden and you don't really have to worry about replanting it or doing too much, and it's very hardy and low maintenance. As long as you plant it in well-drained soil and shade to moderate shade, it'll do pretty good, and it spreads rhizomatously, so even if you have like a patchy spot, if you give it enough time, it'll eventually spread out and make itself at home. It originates in south central China, which in the cultivar name, Nagoya stars, Nagoya is actually a city in Japan, but that was just where it was introduced to the market, and then the horticultural breeder introduced it as his cultivar, and so that's where the Nagoya stars comes from. The leaves, even though they are perennial and hardy, have a 3-year leaf life. So after about 3 years, the older leaf growth will start to die off and then look a little sad, and then it'll give the younger leaves some time to shine, so to speak, pass the baton on. It's also good for houseplants. It's hardy, good outside, but it does a good job of acclimating to indoor pots. If you want to move it inside, have some nice decoration inside, a little livelihood. And the only problem if you plant it outside, other than sun scorch, if it's in full sun, is it can occasionally get spider mites is the main real pest problem. Not really many disease problems, just a nice foliage to decorate the yard. And on average, it gets like 30 inches tall, 6 foot wide, so you don't have to worry about it absolutely overloading your lawn. And it was a relatively new cultivar, new in the sense that it was named in 1982, so I guess that's kind of subjective. And it, like I said, it just needs drainage, relatively hardy plant. Anyone can grow it as long as you've got the soil and at least water it. You got to give it a little bit of TLC, but that's pretty much the stick of it, the shtick. It's Aspidistra oblancifolia, Nagoya stars, or I just prefer speckled cast iron.
Question. As far as maintenance of it, does it have to be eventually thinned out as it grows, and does it have to be fertilized?
You don't necessarily need to thin it out unless the dying foliage is just really unappealing and it doesn't look good. So other than that, it's relatively self-sustaining. And then you can fertilize it to like stimulate growth, but other than that, it's relatively self-sustaining. And they're not in flower right now because it flowers in winter to late spring, but they've got these really nice tiny red flowers that look like star-nosed mole noses that I'll hand around.
Oh, wow.
And it's there, you don't get to see them a lot, but when they are, you have to dig for them. But I kind of like that. It's a little bit of a hidden treasure on the plant. And then if you look hard enough, you can find the flowers, but I'm honestly content just looking at the leaves. It's a nice little subtle variegation, so you can still get that color and it's still predominantly green. Nice little polka dot pattern, except hectic polka dot. Does it produce leaves every year or every 3 years? It will produce leaves every year, but it's just every 3 years is whenever that leaf life cycle will start to cancel out and it'll just start to form necrosis and die off, so to speak.
So if you were going to fertilize, what would you fertilize with?
I would recommend probably a predominantly nitrogen-based fertilizer, just because it's not very needy in terms of fertilizer. As long as it's got moisture and shade, it's pretty self-sustaining. And then probably like once every 6 months, which is a rough estimate, but it's not necessarily, it's very low maintenance. It's kind of, yeah, it's not going to call out your name and beg for more food.
Hi everybody, my name is Kaina. I am a senior at NC State, and my major is in landscape design with a minor in ecology and a minor in entomology. And today I am going to be talking to you guys about the absolute love of my life, Eastern serviceberry. This specific serviceberry is Amelanchier canadensis glenform, and the common name on the market is called rainbow pillar serviceberry. It is called rainbow pillar serviceberry because it is more of an upright columnar form and a little bit smaller than the straight species, so it's really great in small spaces. One of the things that I love about serviceberries is how versatile they are in the landscape. So they are very adaptable with their sun and soil conditions. As seen here, this gets dappled shade all day. It does fine. It can also handle part shade and full sun. However, down here in the south, if you do have it in full sun, it's best to keep it on the eastern side of a building that only gets morning sun, because the afternoon sun is going to be a little bit too hot for it. Another thing that I like about it is its adaptable soil conditions. So like most plants, it will be favorable to moist, well-drained soils, but it is very tolerant of our clay soils here. It can also handle dry spots as well as wet spots, which makes it a great option for if you're trying to find something for a rain garden. So as you can see, identifying this tree, we have elliptical leaves with very finely serrated margins, alternately arranged with very fine hairs on the underside of the leaf. And another thing that I love about the aesthetic of this plant is its seasonality. It has flowers in spring, fruit in summer, and then beautiful fall color. During about March to April, it will produce these beautiful tiny little white flowers, as it is in the Rosaceae family. So it's going to have those tiny little 5-petaled flowers. They're usually white. They can have like a little bit of a pinkish hue to them sometimes, and they're fragrant, and pollinators love them. Then during the summertime, around May to June, this plant will produce little fruits that are red to dark purple in color. They kind of look like a blueberry, and what's incredible about them is that they are edible, not only to wildlife, but to us. And they're very delicious. They have, as they look like blueberries, they also kind of taste like blueberries, and they're really great for jams and pies. One of the things about the fruits that is an issue, unfortunately, as with a lot of the fruits on Rosaceae trees, is that they can get something called cedar apple rust. And what that is going to look like is the berry is going to be covered in this rusty colored, spiky orange, sort of like powdery substance. And you definitely don't want to eat them. But to my knowledge, it's not super harmful for the tree. You can just kind of leave them on, just don't eat them. I also like it for the wood. The wood is very versatile. It is sturdy yet flexible, so it can be used as handles for tools, as well as walking sticks and fishing rods. And then my most favorite fact about this tree is that it is a host for not one, but 2 of our native insect species, both the red-spotted purple butterfly, as well as the viceroy butterfly, which you guys have probably seen viceroy butterflies specifically and thought that they looked like monarchs. And fun fact about that, they look like monarchs because they are trying to mimic the shape, the pattern and the color of monarchs to essentially tell predators don't eat me, I'm poisonous. Because an actual monarch butterfly is poisonous, and that's because of all of the milkweed that they eat. Along with being the host plant, they are, like I said, a really great pollinator plant, and the berries are eaten by all sorts of birds and mammals. And this is why I'm absolutely in love with this tree. Any questions?
How big will it get?
This one in particular only gets to be about 15 to 20 feet tall. I've seen some of them, like the straight species, can get a little bit taller, but they're not very large trees. Service berries in general, you can find them in any nursery, and they're found commonly in a lot of nurseries that I've seen here because they are actually native to North Carolina, along with like all along the East Coast. Anything else? All right, thanks guys.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophia Mozgala. I am a recent graduate of NC State in horticulture. I minored in entomology, so Kaina's talk earlier was very interesting. Right now I will be talking to you about Romanea coulteri, or Coulter's Matilia poppy. I talked to Dennis about this, we were worried about the pronunciation. So this is a native plant to California. It is also known as the California tree poppy or the fried egg flower. So as I said, it's a California native. Its hardiness zones is 8 to 10. It is an herbaceous semi-deciduous shrub. It grows rhizominously, much like the Nagoya star we were talking about earlier. It'll grow to 4 to 6 feet tall and then spread about 8 feet. And then the flowers are the largest flowers native to California. They will get to 7 inches wide. That is impressive. And then the flowers will bloom late spring to early summer. We don't see them now because these are not the growing conditions to promote flowers. We do have in the photo though what it did look like when it was blooming for the prime conditions. The fact that it's doing so well in the Arboretum is amazing, hence the drought we've had this summer. And so that's why it's looking very lush and amazing, is because it loves dry ground. And we are in the Xeric garden currently. So if you were to want to do this in your garden, you want very, very well draining pots or soil because it is drought resistant. And so it is prone to root rot if it is overwatered. It loves the sun, hence the Xeric garden. It has nice glaucous leaves that helps with preventing water loss. It is resilient against deer, rabbit, gophers, and fire, all in California. So a fun thing that when I was reading about this was it is hard to establish, but it's also invasive. So you're like, how is this possible? But once again, it spreads rhizominously. So underground, it sends up these runners, and it is really hard to propagate through the seeds. And because of that, you want to propagate through the runners. So any shoots that come up, that's how you want to take it and pot it up. The namesake is actually back in 1845. Irish botanist Dr. Thomas Coulter named it after his friend Thomas Romney Robinson, an Irish astronomer. And then the Chumash Native Americans actually used the sap from this plant to make medicinal tinctures for gum and stomach ailments. And then its uses are great for cut flowers if you're able to make it flower, and then also ground cover, as you can see here. So thank you so much. Do we have any questions? It is deer resistant, it's gopher resistant, fire resistant, and the thing you got to the concern with this plant is root rot. So like many of the plants here in the Xeric garden, you can see we're on like this like pea gravel and stuff. We've specifically made it so that it is an environment welcoming to draining and not holding a lot of water. So if you were to have this plant in your yard or anything, much like California, it's dry in the certain areas that it's at.
You said it was semi-deciduous. Could you elaborate on that? What does this look like through the winter?
Yeah, so through the winter, there will be some dieback, and also what it's suggested to do to maintain and have this like luscious growth the next year is you're going to cut it back down to 3 to 4 inches in late fall, early winter is what's suggested if you purposely want this to look nice. So, yeah. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Hi everybody, my name's Andrea Garcia-Guerrero. I'm an upcoming senior At NC State studying horticultural science with a minor in environmental science. I'm a 2026 intern here at JCRA. I'm working as an education and horticulture intern, so it's really cool to see both worlds. And today I'm very excited to do my plant lovers tour with you guys. But first I want to give you a backstory about my first plant, which is called Sequoia sempervirens, or commonly known as coastal redwood. Last year, May 2025, I had the privilege to go to the Sequoia National Park in California to go visit my family. And it was so amazing to see these big, large trees that are so old, over 2,000, they can be up to 2,000 years old. And they are the largest tree in the world. So Sequoia sempervirens, coastal redwood, it is in the Cupressaceae family, the cypress family. It's one of the tallest trees in the world. They are native to Central California and Oregon. They are woody trees, so they're a gymnosperm, and they produce cones, so they don't flower. And their needles, they are alternately arranged, and they're kind of sharp, and they have two white stomatal bands on the back of it that help with IDing the tree, which is something really cool. I like to see these two white stomatal bands on some of the conifers and trees in North Carolina as well. These trees can live up to 2,000 years old. It's a very densely branched evergreen conifer that can be from 60 feet to 200 feet or more. The one in the Sequoia National Park is over 300 feet tall, which is really cool. Like, it's taller than the Statue of Liberty. It's crazy to think in perspective just how big these trees are and how old they are. Something cool about the genus's name Sequoia is it was named in honor of the Native American chief named Sequoia, and the sempervirens means evergreen, which makes sense because this is an evergreen tree. And to talk about why I really like this tree is the very nice exfoliating bark. I really like this red color and just how nice it is to feel. It's a little bit fuzzy. I just love the color of it and the texture of it and just how tall it is. Look at this big canopy up here. This tree likes to have full sun with a little bit of dappled shade. It likes moist, cool climates. So that's why it does really well in the coastal areas of California. They do not require pruning. I would not want to get up on these trees based on how tall they are for pruning. They are propagated by seed or root cutting, so something new to try at home if you want your own sequoia tree in your yard. So next time you're at JCRA, come and look at the large Sequoia sempervirens trees that we have here.
All right, and for our next plant on the tour, it is in this little alcove over here. It is the Euphorbia rigida, also known as rigid spurge. It is also a hardy herbaceous that will overwinter, and I will pass around some pictures of the flower because similar to the Nagoya Stars cast iron plant, this flowers midwinter to late spring, so it's not on full display, not showing its full colors right now. It is on average 12 to 15 inches tall, about 2 to 3 feet wide. However, the flower heads, once they are spent, have explosive seed heads, so that can become a problem with like large amounts of spreading. As you can see, there's some over there. You might see little clumps here and there throughout the garden that pop up, and so in order to avoid that and keep it from getting too weedy, you can just cut back the spent flowers, and then you don't have to worry about those seeds blowing up and being everywhere. As well as the fact that unlike the cast iron plant, this is a taproot forming plant, so it's not going to spread rhizomatously, but the seed heads are the main way it's going to spread, through wind and just carrying that way. It is originally from Italy, Morocco, Iran, Syria, Greece. So this plant's kind of all over the place, and you can grow it pretty much anywhere. This is similar to Sophia's plant. This is growing in pea gravel, so it does well in xeric gardens, rock gardens, and is very tolerant of drought, which is good given our recent weather here. So that's a benefit to it. And I also just love the glaucous foliage and that nice blue color that it has, as well as just the way that the leaves come out. I mean, rigid spurge is a very appropriate name for it. And then a fun fact about the plant is it's also related to poinsettia. So that will be a more common relationship tip that you might know about around Christmas. And then whenever you prune it, though, you want to be very careful that you wear gloves because it produces this white milky sap that can cause skin rash, similar to poison ivy, and worst case scenario, if you get it in your eyes, it can cause blindness. So you want to definitely keep it away from kids and pets, but a benefit to the sap is that you don't have to worry about deer, rabbits, or any other sorts of invasive animals trying to eat your plants. And it also received an award from the Award of Garden Merit by the Royal Horticultural Society in the United Kingdom, and can grow well in anywhere from zones 7 to 11. So it does pretty well in a wide variety of places.
Hey everyone, my name is Diaz. I am a rising junior here at NC State, and I'm studying landscape design as well as Kaina. And today I'm here to talk to you about this lovely little guy, the Ethereum Godzilla, also known as the giant Japanese painted fern. As you can see, he is a little guy now, but they actually grow 3 feet tall and can spread to about 4 to 6 feet wide. So they can get pretty big. This guy is looks like he's just starting out. He's getting some really cool large clumps going. They are in the Atheriaceae family, and they are hardy from zones 3 to 8. They're native to East Asia. And what I love about this plant is just how striking this silver foliage is with that deep purple center. I think it's really beautiful. And also the purple rachis is also really awesome. They work really well as specimen plants, accent plants, plants in rock gardens, and also really well in Asian-themed gardens. They are shade plants. They do really well in nutrient-rich soil, and of course, they're very water-loving. So I love these little guys. I think this one's gonna grow really big and strong, and I just love, that's such a cool name, right? Godzilla. I love that name. So the question was, is there any dieback? I am aware that sometimes that the foliage will start to look really tattered, especially during like midsummer. So it's best to just cut that dying foliage off just to make it look nice and bright again. Any other questions? All right. For our next plant, we've got the Juniperus depiana, the alligator juniper. I freaking love this guy, guys. He is so cool. Just the blue striking upright form I think is so awesome, especially in this area. They are called the alligator juniper for its square, rigid bark. You can't really see it very well right now, but on especially the more adult forms, it looks just like alligator skin, which I think is really compelling. They are dioecious, so that means that they will either be male or female. They are native to the Southwest, so Southwest USA, and then also central to northern Mexico. They're actually one of the larger trees in the Southwest, which I find really cool. They get about to 40 feet high, I believe. They also do really well as a nesting tree, and they also happen to be a larval food plant for many moths and butterflies. They do really well in rocky soils, slopes, and mountains, and they're very heat and drought tolerant, thank goodness. So they do really well here, and he's having a really good time in this area. They are also hardy from zones 7 to 10. So yeah, I love this guy. I think he's really great specimen plant.
Do they keep that form, like when they get that tall?
I've seen them get a little bit more kind of trunky, so you can really see that bark a little bit more stretched out in terms of if they stay in this form. I would say they kind of grow out of it a little bit, but it's still just as striking and awesome. So it only gets better from here. So apparently this has been in the ground for about 2 years now, so he's still just a young little guy.
All right, so our next plant, once again in the berms, is the Pinus thunbergi warbonnet, also known as the Japanese black pine. Just the striking features on this. This is one of the first plants I learned in my plant ID class, and so this cultivar, walking around, I just thought it was absolutely beautiful. It is native to Japan and Korea. It's a perennial conifer shrub. It's got vigorous, long green needles, but in the wintertime, it'll have lovely bright yellow winter color. So it's a nice variegation. You can see like on the tips of it, if y'all want to look later at it, there's some of that yellow variegation. This cultivar can reach like 8 to 10 feet in height and spread, and that'll be in about 10 years. And much like the juniper we were just at, is very heat tolerant, which is good in the berms. And then it is also salt resistant. This specific Japanese black pine can handle shade slightly more than most conifers can, which is really nice because we got some shade trees right here. So we got some nice overcasts and stuff. It grows well in hardiness zones 5 to 8. And then what they do is they will grow it all the way down to the ocean shore. These can be used to reclaim sand dunes even. They typically like, the soil that they're in now, but they can handle some sandy soil like that. They are deer tolerant. I know that's a big need in our area. And then they have these terminal buds. I don't know if you can see this little one here, that are called candles. And this is the spring growth. So you'll see varying in size and stuff, but sometimes they'll be like this tall and then sometimes they're this short as well. And there's a technique called candling where you will just snap that off and that'll promote new growth. And then the name Thunbergi for the species is actually named after Carl Peter Thunberg, the Swedish physician and botanist who studied at and worked at University Uppsala. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. And so with these though, you do have to worry about some diseases such as pinewood nematodes, miners, sawfly, scale, mealybugs, borers, and weevils, but that's pretty typical for a lot of conifers and stuff. But with this and with Pinus thunbergi as a whole, they're suggested for smaller gardens or container gardens. This is more of a dwarf species, so it is shorter than Pinus thunbergi that grow 10 to 20 feet tall, and this is 8 to 10 feet tall. And then they'll live roughly 20 plus years. So not as long lived as many trees, but still quite beautiful in the time that you have it. So do we have any questions? Do the yellow needles fall off in the winter time? So needles do shed at times, and then the thing is with that is like it's losing its chlorophyll, and that's why it's turning yellow. And so with that, that's definitely something I would need to look at with the winter foliage and stuff. But with a lot of conifers, they do shed old needles, and that's how we get nice pine straw. So yeah. Any other questions? Sweet, thank you so much.
The heavy rains we had the past couple of days were bittersweet because we definitely needed them from this drought, but unfortunately it completely took out one of the pieces that I was going to show you today and snapped the stem on it. But luckily we have this little dinky flower here, is called Liatris spicata, just a straight species, no fancy cultivars. And the common name for it, there's a bunch of different common names, but some of the ones that we say down here are dense blazing star, sometimes gay feather. And this here is a very young specimen. It has been planted fairly recently, and that's why it's so small. But eventually, this native perennial is going to get anywhere from 3 to 6 feet high, and it's going to clump anywhere from 3 inches to 18 inches wide. And this is in the Asteraceae family, believe it or not, so it's related to things like sunflowers and black-eyed Susans, which is crazy because it looks nothing like it. And then it grows via a bulb called a corm. And as I said before, it is a native perennial, which is one of the main reasons why I like it. And it's very versatile in the landscape, just like the other plant that I had. It can handle full sun to part sun, although it prefers full sun a little bit better. But because of that, it is heat tolerant as well. It also is versatile in different soil conditions. So it can handle our clay soils here, as well as sandy soils, poor soils in general. And that also makes it an excellent candidate for something like a rain garden or a bioswale like you see here. During midsummer, this will flower. So, right now we are in midsummer, so it's starting to flower a little bit. And it has these long purple spikes. Sometimes they come in white. Most often they'll be in purple. The bloom is determinate, which means simply that it just blooms from the top down. So all of the flowers will open up at the top and then start opening down at the base. And they are densely compact around the stem as they open up, which makes them kind of look like big fuzzy purple sticks, which I think is pretty neat. Other than that, we have these long, thin leaves that are alternately arranged along the stem. One of the things that I love about this plant is that it is also a host plant. It is a host plant for both the Liatris flower moth that feeds on the flowers and the seeds, as well as the Liatris borer moth that feeds on the stems. Other than that, if you guys like goldfinches, this is a really great plant to have in your garden because goldfinches love to eat the seeds of Liatris. Another fun fact that I like, and I like to tell people this whenever I'm doing designs for them, and I recommend Liatris, is that during the winter time, after the flowers are spent, usually, unless a heavy rain knocks them down, you'll have these long vertical stems. And if you leave the stems and you don't cut them back for the winter, it will provide an interesting vertical interest, structural interest during that time when there's not a lot of interesting things happening in the garden. But also, more importantly, these stems, if you leave them, create a habitat for stem nesting bees to hibernate over the winter. Those are my favorite things about Liatris. Any questions? So the question was, are there any varieties of Liatris that are actually deer resistant? And to my knowledge, unfortunately, no. But what I like to tell people whenever they're looking for things with deer resistance is deer, unfortunately, will eat just about anything if they're hungry enough. So what I always recommend to some of my clients is to have an area that you don't like going to very much, usually at the edge of your garden, that has plants that deer actually love. And that way it'll distract them a little bit from the plants that are closer to your house that you want to keep intact. Any other questions? All right. Thank you guys.
So my name is Holden. I'm going into my second year at the Ag Institute where I'm double majoring in horticulture science and agribusiness. And today, first thing I want to talk to you guys about is this pink flowering banana, or Musa ornata ex volutna. One of the parent plants of the Musa ornata, is native to Southeastern Asia, and the Musa volutna is native to Northeastern Asia. And this cross actually happens naturally in Brazil, where these two parent plants are both in the Rhodoclamus taxonomic section of the wild banana genus, and because of that, they are able to cross their ovules and pollen easier. Simple as that. While they look like trees, these are not woody trunks. They are pseudostems, which come up from these rhizomes beneath the ground. These pseudostems take 1 year to mature, fruit, flower, and then they die back, where the rhizome underground will shoot up another pseudostem continuously. And at the same time, the rhizome beneath the ground will shoot out pups, which are genetic copies, essentially, of the mother plant, where they will shoot up another pseudostem continuously. And as you see here, they do it a lot. We received this plant in 2021, in September of 2021, from Hayes Jackson in Alabama, and it came as a bare root specimen. So this really, in only 5 years, not even 5 years, this is what it's turned into. So these are very, very fast growers. They can grow up to 4 to 6 feet in a single summer. Now, a single pseudostem can grow 4 to 8 feet in height, and the leaves can be 3 to 5 feet in length. This hybrid enjoys full sun to partial shade. Be very careful where you plant it because it enjoys morning sun, not afternoon sun, because these leaves are very susceptible to scorch. And they are also, as you can see, they can be easily torn by the wind. Another very important thing is that this hybrid is like most bananas, this hybrid is a very heavy feeder because of their fast growth. They like a soil pH of 5.5 to 6.5. They like very organic, rich soil, nutrient dense, well-drained soil, of course. I can't stress that enough because without it, It cannot grow to this height. I actually saw, when I was doing the research for this plant, I wanted to see what do people do to fertilize these plants, and one thing that I saw was they would plant fish carcass next to the rhizome, and as that fish broke down, it would release phosphorus and nitrogen very slowly, but it was enough, it fed the plant. And then after one stalk dies, they would cut it down the middle and put it upside down, and it would drip over time, and it acted as drip irrigation, also very nutritional for the plant and for the upcoming rhizomes. The flower, if it had a flower, it would be very, very beautiful, and it is technically edible. It's very vibrant flower, yellow to orange flowers beneath the flower bracts. It lives best, it thrives in zones 8 to 11. We know of a Musa ornata ex velutina down in South Carolina that does fruit. The fruit is edible, technically. The pulp is edible, it's sweet, but there's not enough of it, and the seeds are so large that you can chip your tooth. It's not worth it to eat it, but you can actually eat the inner stalk. The inner stalk can be stir-fried or curried, and the leaves themselves are wraps for, similar to tamales, where you wrap your food before you steam it or grill it. So a lot of uses out of this plant. That's one of the reasons I really like it. And the leaves they're beautiful. They're a big fashion statement for your garden, I believe. Anybody have any questions? Can it withstand a hard frost? Yes. I mean, we get frost here. Yeah, it'll be okay. It'll be all right. Because the rhizome is beneath the ground, as long as it's not a very, I mean, I guess it always depends, but it'll be okay.
All right. So my last and final favorite top pick for this intern video is Danae racemosa, called Poet's Laurel, commonly known as Poet's Laurel. I learned this plant in my plant ID class in college. It was probably one of my favorite courses I've taken just because it was so interactive, and you got to be outdoors looking at different plants, getting your steps in and learning and getting to take notes like in person on the field, kind of doing field work. This plant is in the family Asparagaceae. Poet's Laurel is a broadleaf evergreen, so these were one of the plants I got to study while it was winter time because it was still around and not dead because it's evergreen, so it's green all the time of the year. Something cool about the common name Poet's Laurel is that this plant was used during the Roman and Greek times, used by Roman and Greek poets to make wreaths out of this plant for their crowns. This plant is an underused shrub. It's great for shady spots. As you can see, it's doing nice over here in the shade. It likes full shade to partial shade. It's a beautiful plant that grows and spreads. As you can see, it's taking over this corner of the contemplation garden at JCRA. It does really well in shade. It likes to grow and spread. It has no serious disease or pest problems, which is really nice. It's also alternately arranged, and something I really like about this plant is just the waxy feel of the leaf and the texture. It just almost feels like it's not even real. And the shade of the green, I just really love green. It has green leaves, green stems. As you can tell, my favorite color is green, so I chose a good career path in horticulture. It's green, green, green. It has a nice spreading habitat. It's very long, has linear growth. And yeah, but I really like this plant, and I feel like landscapes should use it more, especially since it's an evergreen shrub. And you could have it all time of the year, and it's good for like ornamental use, for crafting, wreath making. It's highly underused, and I just really love the green, beautiful foliage. And again, with the illuminating light, I just think it looks really beautiful. You get a different shade of green with the sun coming in, and with the darker shades more in the shady area, it looks really, really beautiful. Good question. The question was, is it drought tolerant? Yes, it is drought tolerant once it is established. So it might take a little bit of time before it starts to become drought tolerant. So you might do a couple of watering while it gets established in the soil. But yes, it is drought tolerant if you give it some time to establish in the area it's in.
Cool. All right. This is the Acer palmatum hanamatoi. It is a variegated dissectum specimen. It is native to eastern China, Korea, Japan, and south down to Taiwan. As you can see, the greatest attractor to this plant is the variegation. It's pink variegation, which I will talk about shortly. So I'm sitting next to this plant because I want to put into perspective how small
this weeping variety really is. It will only reach about 4 to 5 feet in height and 4 to 6 feet in spread. Now, this plant has actually been here for 10 years, over 10 years, sorry. It's been here since 2013, where we received it from a nursery. And it was in a 1-quart pot. It enjoys morning sun and afternoon shade. It likes to be elevated in well-draining soil because Acer palmatums have very delicate root systems susceptible to root rot. It enjoys organically rich soil from a pH of 5.5 to 6.5. It's hardy to zones 5 through 9. And what we're all looking at here is this pink variegation. That's what we're all here for. So that's what I'm going to talk about. So variegation is a genetic mutation where chlorophyll, where some cells stop creating chlorophyll, which is why they show up white or yellow in some plants like Yucuba. And the green is cells that do keep generating chlorophyll. Now the pink here is actually, it would originally be red. And the red is anthocyanin, which is a naturally occurring pigment in plants. It produces, I believe, purple is one color, but in this plant, we're talking about red. Now, the anthocyanin interacts with the variegated portion of the plant, the red and the white, which creates, it dilutes, and it creates this pink color. And the more sun this plant has, actually, because anthocyanin acts as a natural sunscreen, believe it or not. So if it has more sun, it will become more vibrant. It will be a vibrant electric pink rather than a baby pink or a whitish pink, however you want to describe it. And speaking of the pink color, hanamatoi roughly translates to flower robe or flower gown, and it's a jab at, it looks like it's in bloom. If you stood over there and looked at it, it looks like it's in bloom. You see the light green and the pink. It looks like a small cherry blossom, something of the sorts. Any questions?
With the Japanese maple like that, because it's very easy to see its curves to the left. Do
Yes.
you ever have to stake them so that they grow straighter, or you just let them go?
It depends on what you want. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, do you need to stake these small acers, these weeping Japanese maples? As you can see, the trunk curves this way. It's up to you. It's up to the way you want to grow the plant. Like I said, this is it's a small variety. It's very slow growing. If you wanted it to go straight up, it would look more ovular, I would say, almost like an umbrella that has more of a concave. But when you let it grow this way, it has more of a ground cover look, like it's flatter. Exactly. So it's up to what you want. It's up to what you want. Any other questions? Cool. Thank y'all.